Now it's a great honor to bring in Senator-elect Raphael Warnock. Reverend, thank you so much for being with us. Congratulations, and would love to know what are your thoughts this morning.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with you. Listen, I'm very proud of the people of Georgia. What they did last night was stunning. When you think about the arc of our history, they are sending an African-American preacher, pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Dr. King served, young man who is the son of a Jewish immigrant in John Ossoff, to the United States Senate. And this at a time in which there are fault lines that certain people are trying to stir up in our country, at a time we can least afford for that kind of division. We've got big problems. These problems can only be solved if we come together. And I think that the people of Georgia stood up last night and said that that's the kind of work that we want to see get done in the United States Senate.
You know, Reverend, I remember after getting elected to Congress, I grew up in a Baptist church, and I knew the politics of Baptist churches. But after I got elected to Congress, I'd go up to every pastor afterwards, and as we were shaking hands, I'd hug him, and I'd say, I'm sorry. I know this has got to be tough because nobody expects me to be perfect at my job, but you got to be perfect. But you, as a reverend, seem to be perfectly fit for this moment in time when we have a Senate that may be split 50-50. We got a House that's almost split 50-50 right down the center. I mean, now is the time to have somebody who knows how to bring Republicans and Democrats together. Talk about that.
Listen, if you've ever had to get the folks who like anthems and the folks who like contemporary gospel music to work together, you're ready for anything. I know that there's a lot of work to be done in the Senate. I have experience in history bringing people together to work on criminal justice reform, voting rights, a whole range of issues, and I hope to bring that spirit to the United States Senate. Dr. King reminded us that we are tied in a single garment of destiny. And I think that many of these truths that should have been evident to us in tragic fashion have been brought into sharp focus in the midst of this pandemic. We should have known before a pandemic that I need my neighbor to have health care, but now we're dealing with an airborne deadly disease. My neighbor coughs, they're sick, but I'm potentially imperiled. We are as close to one another in our humanity, regardless of race or even political party. We are as close to one another as a cough, as a sneeze. And it is that kind of sensibility that we need to bring to the work of legislation in the United States Senate.
Reverend Al Sharpton's with us, and the Rev's got a question. Rev.
First of all, congratulations, Reverend, and I can attest to the fact that you have always been a healing person. I talk to you all the time about the picture you and I were at your church with Dr. King's sister the night Obama won, and we had that picture where you allowed National Action Network to have that rally that night. But I wanted to ask you about legislation. One of the things that has been an issue in Georgia and that you and Ossoff has, in the spirit of Rabbi Heschel and Dr. King, worked together on is voting suppression. And there's the John Lewis voting bill that is pending in the Senate. Tell us about you wanting to push that bill, you being John Lewis's pastor, and in many ways saw your race as a tribute to John Lewis and this legislative initiative to protect people's right to vote, something John Lewis gave his life for.
Well, I had the honor, as you point out, of serving as John Lewis's pastor. I met him when I was a college student at Morehouse. And there's no question that voting rights is his life's work. And, you know, when he was lying in state in the U.S. Capitol, we saw senator after senator, congressperson after congressperson stand and talk about what a great man he was. Well, if John Lewis was a great man, and certainly he was, then we ought to put forward the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act for a vote. It's the right thing to do. We have seen on the ground here in Georgia what has happened After the Supreme Court gutted the 2013, the Voting Rights Act, they asked Congress to fix it. And finally, we got something passed in 2019. But it is sitting right now, needs to be put up for a vote. So I certainly will be advocating for that. I've been working on voting rights for years here in Georgia. I've worked alongside my sister Stacey Abrams and others to register hundreds of thousands of new voters in this state. I was chair of the New Georgia Project. I've seen the ways in which voter suppression reinvents itself. Your vote is your voice, and your voice is your human dignity. And, you know, the great thing about America is we have rambunctious arguments about guns and butter, about policy, but at the end of the day, all of the people should be able to speak. And we ought to heed what the people are saying.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.